In this chapter, you'll learn how to use the keyboard and how to read some of the screen displays. Right now, you should have the graphics show and the demonstration menu cycling on your monitor screen. We now want to work with the main demonstration menu. So if the graphics demonstration is showing, press the key marked Escape to bring up the menu. You'll encounter menus frequently during your work with computers. Menus are just that, a list of choices from which you can choose options. On the demonstration programs menu, you can run a program showing you the console demonstration. You can try the type ahead buffer, or adjust the video monitor, or sit back and relax and watch the Apple III graphics show. We'll do the console demonstration now, so select the console demonstration program by pressing the number 1 key. This program will now show you a screen full of information to read. Go ahead and read it, but don't hit the return key just yet. The return key is probably the most frequently used key on your Apple III, and it is the most important. Basically, it is the signal to the CPU that you want the computer to understand and act on the message you have just typed in. It is sort of like the period at the end of a sentence. It tells your Apple that you have a command, and here it is. Some computer manufacturers call it an enter key. In fact, on most programs, the enter key on the lower right end of your keyboard, near the individual number keys, can be used interchangeably with the return key. Using the return key will become automatic for you soon. In the meantime, if you have given your Apple a command and nothing seems to be happening, be sure you have followed that command by pressing return. Now press return to get to the next screen. When you press a key on your Apple III, you'll find that if you do more than just tap the key, it will repeat. We'll be specific later, but you'll need to be aware that if you hold the return key down or press too hard, it will repeat the return message. Since we have just asked you to press the return key to get to this screen, you may find that your screen doesn't match and you have a different screen showing. If this is the case, the reason is that the return key was held too long and it consequently changed the screens a number of times. To correct and get back to where we are, simply reboot your disk. Press the key marked Escape to bring up the menu. Select the console demonstration program by pressing the number 1 key. Then press the return key. The next few screens will tell you a little about the console operation and how it differs, depending on which language you are working in. For the time being, we will be working only in Apple Business Basic, so don't worry if the information on those screens gets a little confusing. Simply press return at the end of each screen until your screen looks like this. So far, you've had a chance to use some of the new keys on your Apple that don't appear on a typewriter keyboard. When you performed the control reset function earlier, you had to hold the control key down first while you pressed the reset key. The control key is always used in conjunction with some other key to perform some specialized function. Go ahead and type a few letters. Now hold down the control key and press the X key. Notice that the little box with the arrow moved down a line on the screen. Also notice that a backslash was left at the end of the first line. The Control X command tells your computer you wish to ignore the line you've just typed, so the computer puts a backslash on the line not to be used. It then moves the box to the next line so you can start the line over correctly. We'll get to other control letter combinations later on. That little box, by the way, is called a cursor. It tells you that your Apple III is waiting for you to tell it something. It also shows you where on the screen the next character you type will appear. You can move the cursor left and right with the 2 keys on the lower right side of the keyboard labeled with arrows. Go ahead and move the cursor left and right. Then type a few more letters. In some programs, it is helpful to be able to move the cursor up and down on the screen also. Depending on the particular program you may be working with or a particular language you may be programming in, the cursor may be moved up and down with the 2 keys showing up and down arrows. Now press any letter key and hold it down. Notice that the letter keeps repeating as long as you hold the key down. You'll find this a very useful feature later. It is called auto-repeat and is available on all the keys with letters, numbers, and symbols. In fact, on the arrow keys, there is a dual speed repeat function. Go ahead, press the left-hand arrow key lightly and hold it down. Then press the key more firmly. The cursor moved faster when you pressed harder. Now type a row of characters across the whole screen and continue typing when you get to the end of the row. Notice that the cursor came to the end of the row and then continued the characters that you were typing on the next line. This is called Wraparound, and it means you don't have to press the return key when you come to the end of a row. Your Apple III is capable of displaying 24 lines, of up to 80 characters per line. It is also capable of displaying lower as well as uppercase letters. The shift keys at each end of the keyboard function just like those on a typewriter. By holding down either shift key and striking another of the letter keys, the uppercase or capital version of that letter appears on your display. If you want to continue typing all capital letters, you can lock the letter keys into uppercase by pressing the alpha lock key on the lower left side of the keyboard and then typing. To unlock it, simply press it again. The symbol that appears on the top of the number keys and on top of some of the letter keys can only be used by pressing the shift key. The alpha lock key does not control their use. You may have noticed that there are several new symbols that don't appear on an ordinary typewriter keyboard. Those symbols are the vertical bar, the backslash, the tilde, the grave accent or reverse apostrophe, square brackets left and right, braces or parentheses left and right, angle brackets left and right, and the caret or circumflex. Many programming languages use these symbols for various functions, and they add to the versatility of your Apple III. In most programs involving mathematics, it is necessary to use a symbol for multiplication and a symbol for division. The asterisk is usually used for multiplication, and the forward slash is used for division. The group of 13 keys to the right of the main keyboard is called the Numeric Keypad. These keys are laid out like a calculator or adding machine and allow you to enter numbers faster than by using the top row of number keys on the main keyboard. Now would be a good time to mention the letter O and the 0 keys. Your Apple needs a way to distinguish between the letter O and the number 0. You should be careful that you don't type O when you mean 0 or vice versa. A program expecting a value 0 will not recognize the letter O as anything other than what it is, the letter O. The same is true of the number 1 key and the lowercase l. From your typing habits, you might try to enter a lowercase l when you mean the value 1. Again, your Apple can't tell you mean a value 1 if you actually type it as a lowercase letter l. This could be another time when a program might not run correctly. You've already used the control key, the alpha lock key, and the shift keys. They are also known as modifier keys because they modify the function of other keys. There are two other modifier keys, the open Apple key and the closed Apple key. Both of these keys modify other keys, depending on how a program is written. One of the more common uses of the open Apple key is to use it with the question mark symbol. Several programs are written so that you can receive help if you forget a procedure or command. Here's an example. You might be composing a business letter on the Apple Writer 3 program and forget how to save that letter into a file on a disk. By holding down the open Apple key while you strike the shift question mark combination, a menu will appear showing you the frequently used control functions available in Apple Writer 3. If you decide to go back to your letter in the Apple Writer program, you simply strike the return key and the program will take you back to it. The closed Apple key usually acts as a kind of speed shift key. If you are holding down another key and doing a repeat function, pressing the closed Apple key will triple the repeating speed. The open Apple and closed Apple keys will become more useful to you as you start to use your Apple III. Modifier keys modify the meaning of other keys. This is an important point to remember because you'll use the 5 modifier keys frequently. The control key is probably the most often used modifier key. To use the control key, you hold it down while you strike the other key. Manuals use one of 3 ways to signify a control function. Sometimes you'll see the letters CTRL- and a letter, or a letter inside of 2 square brackets, or the circumflex or caret sign and a letter. Each of these 3 methods mean the same thing. Do a control and the letter function. The tab key functions much in the same way it does on a typewriter, moving the cursor a predetermined number of spaces. Finally, the escape key provides another special function. As you saw earlier when you used it to get to the demonstration menu, it is frequently programmed to help you get from one level of a program to another. In addition to the keys, your spacebar is an important part of the keyboard. You'll find that the location of spaces can be vital to successful programming and operation. When you get to the point that you are copying someone else's program from a printed list, pay particular attention to where the spaces are located and be sure you place them in the same spot. The program might not run correctly if spaces are placed wrong or don't exist. Now we'll show you how you can correct typing errors, then give you some time to try out all of the keys we have just mentioned. Go ahead and type about half a line of letters. Now move the left pointing arrow key back over a few of these letters. Press the return key. Notice that the only letters that were saved after you hit the return key were those to the left of the cursor. Now type another partial line of letters. Now use the left arrow key to move the cursor to the left, over some of those characters. Now start typing different letters over the old ones. Notice how the new letters replace the old ones. Now type the line, "Now is the time for all good..." Oh well, we had better go back and correct the word "for." Move the cursor back 12 spaces using the left arrow key until it is on top of the letter I in the word "for." Then type the letter O over the I. Now move the cursor back over to where you left off using the right arrow key and continue to type. When you come to the end of the sentence, press return. You corrected the error in the word "for" by backspacing the cursor, overstriking the letter, and using the right arrow key to move the cursor back to where you left off. The right arrow key is also known as the Retype key because it lets your Apple III think that you had retyped the letters as it had passed over them. The backspace, overstrike, and retype techniques you have just used are called non-destructive backspace. When you move the cursor back over the characters, they stayed on the screen. Now go ahead and practice typing whatever you like. Try the cursor movements and correction procedures, the uppercase and lowercase letters and symbols. Feel free to type whatever you wish. Spend a few minutes and get a feeling for the keyboard. Look at each of the symbols and try whatever keys you want to. Try the number keys on top of the keyboard as well as on the Numeric Keypad. When you have filled the screen with lines of characters, come back to this program and we'll cover 2 last aspects of console operation. Start practicing anytime. The last 2 things we'll cover in this chapter are scrolling and the type ahead buffer. Now that you have filled the screen with characters, continue to type several more lines. Notice that as you need more vertical space to type more lines, the screen display moves up a line at a time to give you more space. This is called scrolling. You could actually move all of the text up and off the screen if you were to hit the return key a number of times. In some programs, such as Apple Writer 3, the up and down arrow keys actually allow you to scroll in both directions. Your Apple III has another handy feature related to the keyboard. It is called Type Ahead Buffer and allows you to type instructions into your Apple while it is doing something else. There's a very good demonstration of the Type Ahead feature on the system demonstration disk you've been using. By holding down the Open Apple key, use the Escape key to escape out of the console demonstration program now on your screen. Now select the Type Ahead Buffer program and follow the instructions that are on your screen. When you are through with the Type Ahead Buffer demonstration, continue with this video lesson. As you begin to practice with your Apple III, don't be afraid to press any of the keys. There's nothing you can do from the keyboard that will cause any major problems. Many people are afraid of pressing a wrong key for fear of doing something to their computer. Don't be afraid. The worst thing that could happen is that you'll have to reboot a program from a disk and start over. A little later in this video program, we'll show you how to save data you've typed so that it won't be lost if something happens. However, there could be a problem if any liquid or powder gets spilled onto the keyboard or disk drive. This could cause your computer to malfunction. Watch what you do with your coffee, tea, or soft drinks when you are near your Apple. You have now learned about all of the special keys on your Apple III and how they function as part of the console. You have also learned how using some of those keys relate to your console monitor. In the next chapter, you'll learn how to work with your disk drives and how to format and copy a floppy disk you may wish to duplicate.